Welcome everyone to this experimental session organized by MIT CoLab, where we are going to explore other ways of knowing as a source of information to navigate our current reality. This is the first public event of this group of CoLab students that was formed before the lockdown. As you know, CoLab is an action-oriented organization within MIT and DASP. And so the original intention of this group was to form a research team to discuss issues related to community planning. As you can imagine, the purpose of this group has been shifting a lot and evolving organically to respond to the most recent events. After the global lockdown, we started talking about speculative fiction, about presenting and imagining futures that we see in this moment to reflect on our current moment and to better understand what actions could be taken now to move in the right direction today. Then the killing of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, and all the conversations and actions that were sparked by these horrible visualizations of racism made us reconsider the purpose of this group as well. And because all these events have a deeply emotional side that is being highly unattended also by planners in the planning discipline, this session today will try to provide a space for all of us to stay with our emotions while also reflecting on the planning discipline as a tool to advance social and racial justice. So welcome again, everyone. My name is Tony Moya. I've been coordinating student engagement at CoLab this past year. Dejon?
Good evening, everyone. Again, I'd like to welcome folks into the space. The quote that most best encapsulate what many of us are experiencing right now is one by Audre Lorde, which says, "For the master's tools will never dismantle the master's house." As planners, in the midst of COVID and perpetual racial injustice, many of us find ourselves grappling with what tools to use that don't replicate oppression. So with that in mind, the work presented tonight covers a range of themes of media, including video, prose, graphics, narrative, and words from practitioners. This will center their own positionality, their visions for justice, and processes we must grapple with to dismantle to get there. This is a moment to experience speculative tools as a modality of planning. Subconsciously, we vision worlds that perpetuate our unconscious beliefs about what and who are valuable. Take note of what resonates with you, what challenges you, and what questions you may have for our presenters. This is a growing space of chosen vulnerability and dialogue. The future cannot be built justly without a struggle, so please engage and be comfortable being uncomfortable. We ask that you consider your own positionality, visions for the future, post-COVID, and ask yourself how it centers co-generated knowledge with folks on the margins of society, economic democracy, and social justice. And the agenda for tonight, we will be having brief presentations, a musical meditation, voices from the field, a guided journaling exercise, and open dialogue with our presenters and practitioners. We'll follow that with closing remarks from our leadership at CoLab. So right now, we're going to step into the presentations. Nikki.
Thank you, DJ. Welcome, everyone. Good evening. How's everybody doing? What a gorgeous February day out there, t-shirt type of weather. How is everyone feeling this evening? I am utterly excited to be here tonight to dream, deliberate, and commit to take action to build this future together. Welcome to the annual meeting of the Bronx Community Land Trust, the 12th since our founding in 2020. I'm Nikki, he, him pronouns. I live in the Amalgamated Co-ops next to Ella Baker Park, and I used to be on the CLT board. We begin, as always, by acknowledging that our beloved borough is the unceded lands of the Munsee Lenape and the Wappinger, their past, present, and future generations. It's an honor to be in the presence tonight of Chief Rose Snake of the Munsee Delaware Nation, with whom we've been working to restore sovereignty and land use rights to the diverse indigenous people on whose land we live. I look forward to her speech in just a few minutes. Listen, we can hear Mosholu because our roots can hear Mosholu. Our CLT has roots in fighting gentrification, ensuring Bronxites of color could own their own labor, housing, and money to build shared wealth, and center the most directly impacted people in decision-making and planning. Truthfully, as the founding board members, I see some of you, we didn't know how to square our pursuit of collective land ownership for people of color with the fact of stolen land. But it became clear not too long after we started, in the process of healing after so much loss in our Bronx community and in indigenous communities during COVID-19, we actually met with members of these nations that our struggles were aligned with those of Lenape land rematriation, working toward Black and indigenous liberation, generative respect for earth, dismantling capitalism and private property and white supremacy and cis heteropatriarchy. This is the Bronx I want to live in. This is the world I want to live in. Listen, we can hear Mosholu because our roots can hear Mosholu. I'm my family's 4th generation to live in Lenapehoking. My great-grandparents were Jews fleeing violence in Minsk, Borisov, Zbarsh, Wumza, Włocławek, Kutno. They came to what we now call the Lower East Side, Flushing, the South Bronx, Belmont, Norwood. Today marks 100 years since my grandparents' generation was born. Today, I'm as old as my grandfather was when he had his first heart attack, 39. Today, I'm as committed to being rooted in this place as my grandparents were in leaving it and never coming back. They did so in 1955, took advantage of their whiteness to live in the suburbs. In the 70s, my mom moved to the city. My dad came down from the Upper West Side, and I grew up in downtown Manhattan. Listen, we can hear Mosholu because our roots can hear Mosholu. I came back to the Bronx, down the hill from the last Jewish enclave, 15 minutes walk from where you can still get latkes, kasha varnishkas, and on days when meat is available, pastrami. But at the time, when I listened to Black and brown Bronxites talk about Jews here, it was usually about their extractive landlords. It wasn't anti-Semitism, it was the truth. Most of the schmuck landlords were Jewish, and we Jews knew it. It was clear we had to get rid of the whole concept of landlords. Now, I can't remember the last time I heard the word rent, honestly. Can you? We got rid of rent. Led by Ruth Wilson Gilmore, Angela Davis, Mariam Kaba, we got rid of cops, jails, and prisons. We got rid of borders, fences, zoning, golf courses, the expressways and mold that were giving Bronxites asthma. We got rid of premature death through COVID, police, or otherwise. We were given the opportunity, as Sonia Renee Taylor said, to stitch a new garment, one that fits all of humanity and nature. We enshrine what Emma Goldman called the right of all people to beautiful and radiant things. Listen, we can hear Mosholu because our roots can hear Mosholu. Mosholu. That was one of those moments that started for me with reading and listening. 2020, time of uprisings. I read that my street, where I'd been living for 3 years, was in fact built on top of a wetland, a brook. The Lenape call it Mosholu, a word that I'd heard before as a street name. In the 1920s, city engineers put Mosholu under asphalt and pavement. But my Bronx roots were deep enough for me to hear it if I listened. The water called to me. I followed it. Listen, we can hear Mosholu because our roots can hear Mosholu. Next to Mosholu, in what was then Van Cortlandt Park, there was an extensive Lenape village called Kaskaskia. On this stolen land, the Van Cortlandt family owned slaves. In 2020, nooses were hung from trees in the park. Queer Black organizers, I see you, Mustafa, had already staged teach-ins about the nooses and the history of slavery in our part of the Bronx. I listened and followed their lead. I stepped back when it wasn't my place and stepped up when called. The CLT joined, we strategized, and fought together. We had too many Stellas and Long Island iced teas at O'Brien's together. We made art, we danced bachata, we sewed PPE together. We still love, feed, dream, laugh, think, plan, and pull shit off with each other. In 2025, right around the time of the destruction of the Constitution of the country formerly known as the United States, the CLT and the Organizers Collective levied a fee on the wealthy white homeowners next to the park to charge them equal to their property value every year. That money was put in funds for Black descendants of the enslaved and for the Lenape nations. The tax was a non-reformist reform in ways, one of many going on across Turtle Island. The whole edifice of property ownership began to crumble in favor of sharing resources sustainably. The streets covering Mosholu were destroyed, and now the entire length of the stream runs free in the daylight as a resource for all. Listen, we can hear Mosholu because our roots can hear Mosholu. All right, I gotta stop talking now so you can listen to others. Thank you for your time and your attention. Send my love and appreciation to you. Pass it off to Denny and Betsa.
Este es el video. ¿Es Betsa? ¿Ese? Hello. Sorry about the technical mix-up. Can you hear us? Cool. We're going to change the pace a little bit and try to speculate from the present. So we want to share an initiative with you that we started through this group here in our hometown of Cuernavaca in Mexico. So it's called Food for Our Neighbors During Lockdown. And let me explain you a little bit how it started, because I think it's a really interesting campaign from some friend of ours. So when Tony invited us to this group and told us it was going to be speculative, I was talking to my brother, Jorge, who's actually here with us listening and hopefully going to participate in a while. And he was telling me, like, well, if you actually want to do something, why don't you do something to help people here? And we are actually involved in something, so why don't you help us do it? So Mari is our mom's housekeeper. And she had an amazing idea that both my mom and my brother were helping her with. So Mari is a mother of three amazing daughters that are also here with us listening. And she had like a little bit of savings from all her life that she kept. And sorry. And she decided to use them to help her neighbors that lost their jobs during COVID get some food, because she thought that's what was needed the most at the moment in her neighborhood. And she's a family leader, a community leader. So she invited her daughters, her husband, and her son-in-law to help her use her savings to buy a little bit of food for people. So actually she ended up creating a network that is huge for the neighborhood that she lives in, which is like every week they give 40 meals away. And they have a roster of, I think, 50 families. So it rotates from week to week. So this is where we came in, Betsa and I, and we helped them set up a GoFundMe account, which has been doing great. We're almost near our goal. So if any of you want to help, you will be very welcome. And this is where we are right now. We have helped distribute 40 meals per week for 10 weeks since May, and we have enough money to go until the middle of September. Uh, Hopefully we'll reach a little bit more, add a couple more weeks here, but we understand that this is not the end, but it's just like the beginning for us in a very long process, hopefully, to be able to help Mari's community a little bit more. So we constantly keep talking between ourselves, between the team, which is like all of us helping out. And we say, so what's next? We have this idea and it looks great, but actually what we're doing at the moment, which is needed, is giving out help. But what is going to be needed in the next couple of years is not just giving out money or giving out food, but actually building the capacities within the community to keep dealing with this situation and to keep developing resources to ask for help. So, because in Mexico, the situation is only getting worse. No matter, doesn't matter what the president says or what we hear on the news, like deaths are on the rise, contagion is on the rise, and it doesn't seem like it's going to be getting better anytime soon with the current policies. And also we have like almost 60% of the workers in Mexico in the informal sector, which is the most affected right now, because staying at home orders just don't make sense for people that need to go out and work informally on a daily basis to gain their food. And it's like approximately 22% of the GDP of Mexico. So communities like La Lagunilla, where Mari is from, which are like at the margins of the city, which have very few resources and are in places that are at risk for more than one thing, are going to need to develop more, I don't know how to like, more cohesive relationships between each other to be able to keep helping and to withstand this current situation. Actually, let me see. This might work. Just a glimpse of how vibrant the neighborhood is right now. And what we're speculating right now, and I'm going to invite them to talk with me too, is about, so if there were some relationships before, and this initiative is somehow building them up a little bit more, making neighbors talk to each other, and develop new connections, what's going to happen next? So apart from the very thankful people that we're trying to help, what is it going to what's going to result from this initiative? So I want to invite, let me say this in Spanish because I'm going to have to translate. Jorge, Eunice, Fanny, Melissa, ¿quién quiere participar? I'll invite them to share their experiences too.
¿Qué? ¿No iban a pasar ellas con traducción o?
Pues no sé, a ver, díganme. ¿Van a participar? Date, Jorge.
Sí,
¿Qué?
Va.
Ah,
Pues,
ok.
díganos pues.
pues nuestra finalidad de este pequeño proyecto
Their goal in this project
es para apoyar a esas personas de la tercera edad o más bien a las personas con las que tenían el apoyo ellas, ya sean sus hijos, sus nietos, que se quedaron sin trabajo.
that to support people from elderly people and handicapped people mainly, if possible, or their families who lost their jobs due to the pandemic.
Que por medio de que pasó de la pandemia no tienen un sustento o un bocado que llevar a la boca.
Yeah, that because of the unemployment, they're not able to sustain themselves and feed their families in the current situation. Y cuéntales un poquito de qué piensan de qué va a pasar después de esto.
Pues queremos seguir, que nos sigan apoyando para que nosotras podamos seguir llevándoles el pan de cada día a esas personas.
They're asking if possible, if anyone can help them to keep doing what they're doing right now and help buy the bread for each day. That's something, I don't know, we say in Mexico. ¿Algo más que les quieran decir? ¿Qué piensan que puede pasar después?
No sé, ¿qué más puede?
Ya. Está bien, no se preocupen. Ya con eso. Well, thank you so much for the moment. And we look forward to staying in touch. And we pass it on to Kevincito.
you.
Okay, can you hear me? Dearly beloved, I am history, avid Europhile, smug adjudicator, definitive voice. We are gathered here today to honor the death of the Chamorros, the quaint indigenous peoples of the Northern Marianas, a chain of small, isolated, and resource-poor islands located in what was once called the region of Micronesia, a geographical category that was promptly dissolved alongside the islands in 2046, a most tragic convergence of rising sea levels, eroded seawalls, and unanticipated pestilence. The Chamorros were a small population, but their colorful culture and vibrant ways brought so much to the world. They had great dances, the Bailan Haiguas, or coconut shell dance, which featured them clapping rhythmically with coconut shell halves and accompanying footwork. The Chamorros were just ingenious with their uses of coconut. They used tuba, or young coconut meat, to make ahu, sweet coconut porridge. They would use a most fascinating device, the ikamzu, to grate coconuts, and they would mix its products with either cooked chicken or raw seafood and lime to make kelaguen. When eaten with tatijas, a charming local variant of the Spanish tortilla, sweetened and thickened with coconut milk, you have the perfect culinary pairing. But more than their delightful dances and rich, delectable food, the Chamorros loved drugs, which sowed the seeds of their extinction. Chamorros would grow pugua, or betel nut, in their own backyards. They kept pugua ready at hand in their pockets, stored between pupulu, or betel leaf. They cracked the hard nut open with their teeth, took a small bite of pupulu, and chewed on the thick, red, fleshy center of the pugua, its induced highs very much akin to tobacco. When they exhausted the substance of its flesh, they would spit it out with carefree islander abandon. Sidewalks and backyards were stained with its deep red hue. Accustomed to the comforts of pugua, the Chamorros would eventually turn their sights to cigarettes and to alcohol. Those exempt from addiction were claimed by bad diets, which experts assert as the primary reason for their unfortunate demise. Consider the Luhans of Familian Kapili, a respectable, well-educated family of otherwise limited historical significance. In the late 2000s, a series of deaths swept through their kin in less than 15 months. It began with Jesus Garrido Lujan II, affectionately known as Pojo, a lifelong smoker who passed away from lung cancer. His father, Jose, then passed away from a failed angioplasty. His arteries were clogged with cigarette tar and narrowed from his hypertension. 8 months later, Kimberly John Lujan, nicknamed Kimbo, passed away from liver cancer. He was a lifelong alcoholic. The last one of the Kapili line, one Kevin Lujan Lee, died from COVID-related complications before his 30th birthday in 2023, his lungs weakened by congenital asthma. Today, we mourn their passing of the Kapilis and of the Chamorros, but we also celebrate, shepherded by their missionary brethren, they have been able to claim their heavenly rewards. Meanwhile, we will always have their ahu, their kelaguen, and their tatijas. Just delicious. First, I would like to recognize the indigenous people on whose unceded lands I stand, the Wampanoag, Nipmuc, and Massachusetts people. I'm Kevin, a rising third-year PhD candidate here at DUSP. I'm one of 2 Chamorros in the United States pursuing a PhD in urban planning today. And apart from mine, the other obituaries of my uncles Kimbo, Pojo, and my grandpa are all real. I'd like to pass the time to Emmett.
What moves us? In 2020, we stood at a moment of uncertainty. Pandemic and social unrest blurred the contours of the world that were once sharp and clear, or so we thought. Historians told us that we had been in such a place before and that we would emerge again. Stronger, they said, but 2020 felt different. We were accustomed to hurtling through space together, bound, if not by our collective experience, then by our shared fate. This time, we were adrift, lone travelers, clinging to shards of driftwood. Having lost our path in the universe, we looked for a new path on Earth. New ways of moving through our cities, which had once been aligned, which had once been constructed, like Corinthia, to align with the stars. The stars we knew before had shifted too, ever so slightly. If there was one thing we knew for sure, it was that we were in motion, but had to find new paths. We began to change our way of looking. Instead of sinking our old celestial waypoints, we turned our gaze to the stars in our view. They had always been there, in fact, but with the whole sky before us, we navigated only by Polaris and Ursa Major. We could not see what was in plain view. The problem, we soon learned, was not where we moved. It was how we moved, how we were able to move, who we became when we moved, who we could become. Instead of asking, where do we go, we started asking, how do we go? We soon understood that salvation would not come from uncovering a runway lit up in stars, but rather by seeing the myriad runways before us. The most important mystery was not in the universe, it was in ourselves. Once we started asking the right questions, things came into focus. We needed to ask, what moves us? We turned our gaze from the stars to the earth and started thinking of our daily navigation through society not as a geographic exercise, but as one of self-awareness. The best navigational tools were not the compass or the telescope, but our hearts and intuition. Each day presented a new navigation, finding our way back to the grain silo, to our friends, and back to our home. It was stressful. Lost in the universe, we were also lost at home. One day, as I trudged along a muddy road, an old man caught my eye and tenderly handed me a slip of paper. I had never spoken with him, but as we made eye contact, I knew he saw me. Saw not where I was going, but what moved me. The scroll was tattered on the outside, though time had not smudged the ink. The lines were crisp, the lettering tidy. It read, "Through daily mobility, we socialize or seek solitude, negotiate our identity, and perform a range of social roles. Through mobility, we may contest power relationships and claim our rights to participate in society, or may be excluded and ignored." I continued on my way, and as I approached home, a new world began to unfurl before me. I saw physical changes that made our city easier to navigate. New runways lighting up for those who had previously had to fly in the dark. Dedicated busways, free transit, or greenery, ramps, so that people with different abilities could ride the bus. Soon I realized that the more important idea was not what it was, but how it felt. Movement is joyful. It is liberating. Mobility defines not only the technology we use to get one point to another, it is how we express ourselves along the way. I began to reflect on the duality between the transience and permanence of transportation infrastructures. They are wrought of stone and iron, buried deep in the earth for miles at a time. They are feats of engineering, lasting edifices of human accomplishment. Yet they change every day as humans move through them. A businessman in cufflinks rubs shoulders with a merchant in shirt sleeves, as a student selects a seat on the bus. Each day a dance unfolds, with a distinct rhythm but different movements. The mood of a society, its hopes, fears, and fleeting stresses is encoded in this dance. And as people traverse the same path each day, soon a new path is created. A trail in the hardwood, worn smooth by the bare feet passing over it. Travel is a form of reinvention, of recording history and creating the future in one fleeting moment. We pass through permanent spaces, leaving traces of ourselves, and taking traces of the environment with us. We gaze out the window of a train to observe business people bustling to their next obligation. and wonder what lies ahead in our own life. Watching kids shuffle the board, we are swept back to a past love, from a different place and time, a different city, but which infuses this one just the same. We stand on the subway platform, nervous, looking around to our fellow travelers, wondering if they are shaking in their boots like us. And we share glances with others on bikes, grateful for the sun on our skin and breeze in our hair. Parts of the future lie in the past. In a way, we have no choice but to remember where we have come from. To think that maybe we got it right long ago, that perhaps cities used to be more human, that perhaps with each footfall and each pedal of the bike, we were moved. And perhaps that is where we are going again. The form of our cities provides only an outline, a starting point. It is on us to hold space for them to emerge as they could be, as they once were. We look back on 2020 as the year when our vision became perfectly clear. It was the year when we were moved. And I will pass it along. So thank you all. I will pass it along to Jerome.
Thank you, Emmett. This is unfinished. I'm not sure what comes next. It was too easy to put our hands up. We lifted them a little awkwardly when chanting, "Hands up, don't shoot," under the watchful eyes of National Guardsmen in green, mirroring a fear for our lives when we didn't know the first thing about what that actually felt like. We opened our full lungs into the chants that was the least we could do, that much power we could give. Now and again, a white stranger would draw in all their anger and would pierce a chant through the mumbles of the march and direct the echo for a few minutes before letting go and letting it settle. Mostly though, we let the non-white folks heave out our voices, heave out that raw feeling from a few dozen lungs and orchestrate it. That's not really my place, we thought. We'd never really cared. To care is exhausting unless you know how it is you've got some skin in the game. When children are drowning in ponds halfway across the world, people don't get their shoes wet to rescue them. We could sign petitions and go to marches. We could try on some elegant, aggrieved Facebook posts. We might even email administrators or help draft some demands, but it was falsetto empathy, and when we ran out of air, it would taper out. We only had so many Saturday afternoons to march. We could only fit so many emails in our to-do list, pile so many books on our bedside table. In the summer of 2020, there was a chorus of mostly Black voices imploring mostly white people to move our anti-racism from head voice to our diaphragms. And in response, the falsetto grew louder, more insistent, pleading, but it was scared to look down deep into the lungs that it was called to fill. It dug in its heels because it knew if it looked down, what it would find there was thick shame. We'd find the pain we'd caused, the pain we'd been raised in, that we politely tucked away, the pain of not seeing the full humanity of the Black people in our lives. We'd find the pain of having been deaf our entire lives somehow to Black people screaming at us, "I can't breathe." We'd find the pain of not knowing, as America started to shake, do I check in with the Black people in my life or not? Because the right answer is only right if you don't have to ask yourself the question in the first place, if it isn't formulaic. And that requires fully seeing the Black people in your life and wanting to hold and to love them. Facing the shame that comes with accountability is scary, but it isn't overwhelming. Like stepping into a cool stream of water when you hold your nose, lift your feet, and let yourself finally fall in. So many of us were on the banks, scared of that first step. It was too easy to put our hands up because to fight the violence was to fight the very thing that made us. To call out our friends and our parents and our grandparents, to disagree with our teachers, to talk back to our bosses. That was the everyday work, the war of attrition that Black classmates waged every day. When you've been given everything you have by playing nice, it's vertigo-inducing to throw what your whole life has taught you to the wind. Turn away, don't look, don't see. I don't see anything, I've taken off my glasses. And each missed action, a little prick of shame, twisting you deeper into contortions. We put our hands up because the righteousness of white supremacy ran deep, deep in our body, deep in our sense of self, far deeper than we knew how to dig it out. Much easier than to turn our attention to the next thing than to linger on it for too long. No surprise that the ones who stuck it with it were mostly POC or women or queer. Life had handed them a crack of insight into the contortions in their body, which ran parallel to the ones on the surface. If they'd worked at it, they could chisel away at that crack and get a better view of what they were up against. They saw the place in their hearts where others' humanity was denied, and it came a little more naturally to them that their liberation was bound together. In March, the world stopped. We came home from work or school one night and didn't go back. Sitting in our living rooms, our view of the outside funneled through a newspaper, we saw the world hold that pause, play dead, as wave after growing wave of Black and brown and poor and elderly bodies heaved and broke across the map of the United States. The world lay on its back. And then began to wake up like so many little crabs moving across a page, rearranging themselves, impossibly nimble. The grocery store, the school, the hospital. But it was too late to stop the cracks in the illusion. Underneath a shiny mask of plate glass and aluminum siding, it was becoming crystal clear that the world was built by people too. I'll pass it to Vane.
Can you guys hear me? No fireworks went off today, July 4th, 2022. Even still, I had looked outside to find the moon. Maybe she had something to share tonight. I couldn't find her. The night, though, was charged, electric, captivating. In the middle of the city, every single star in the galaxy showed up tonight, blinking at you from the future, holding on to what you don't yet know. You didn't hear the repeated thunderous booms off in the distance tonight, those that reminded you of times in your childhood in the suburbs of Houston, when people came out to the neighborhood streets to light Roman candles rather riskily from their own hands to celebrate Independence Day. They never sparked your pride anyway. They reminded you of the time in Colombia before you'd moved to Houston when you celebrated Dia de las Velitas, little globes with real candles floating up into the sky, and that little girl's dress caught on fire. Fireworks and fire, were they the same? At the beginning, it was clear who was being hit the hardest: Black and brown communities. The virus ripped apart hospitals, hospital workers, grocery clerks, vendedores ambulantes, migrant and immigrantes, essential but sacrificial workers. It was clear this level of exploitation couldn't sustain us forever. In the first couple of months, the stock markets rose again. A V-neck recovery, they said. We recovered in ways that left us hollow from the inside out. No. Today, the streets in Houston were quiet. People mourning their loved ones, making time for insurmountable, unimaginable grief. The silence I felt echoed for miles. We had all lost someone we loved. A year before, COVID-19 cases struck 100 million in the United States, 600 million around the globe, while capitalism ripped us open. Moderna begins mass production of a vaccine, my phone would notify me. Stock markets soar. But for me and you, that too became a commodity. Today, cases struck 1 billion worldwide, and with immunity in the hands of a few, death roared to 100 million. 100 million. No one remembers when our indigenous ancestors lost 50% of their loved ones to smallpox in a matter of a few generations. 45 wore a mask for the first time, ironically, right before his re-election. Now, we never even see our own faces walking into the streets covered by hazmat suits, our eyes barely visible. People say he's still alive. People also say he died a few months after then. Either way, the empire is what we see outside. It's hard to predict when we feel that enough is enough. For months now, we've been putting up our altars, and no one is celebrating now. We are repenting. We sit by each altar praying for redemption. We are hoping it's not too late for forgiveness. Tonight, if you listened hard enough, you could hear a heartbeat from the distance, pulsating to the beat of rushing water and falling droplets of rain stirring the smell of earth. Tonight, we all kneel to the altar. Esta noche nos arrodillamos al altar. That piece is an excerpt titled The Altar, and I'm Vanessa Toro Barragan. I just graduated with my master's in city planning at MIT, and now I'll hand it over to Tony. Thank you.
At this moment, we're gonna invite everyone to take a 2-minute screen break. We realize folks are sitting in front of a screen all day and want to give you a minute to break, to soak this up, because this is not light stuff. It's beautiful work and very powerful and emotional work. And so take a break, grab some water really fast, and we'll be back exactly at 6:54. Okay, folks, we're gonna resume now. Whew, that was heavy and necessary for us to take a minute to really soak in the power of speculative media. So now what we're going to do is have voices from the field. Speculative media isn't just for students, and we're hoping by highlighting the work of two of our very own CoLab alum, Lafayette Cruz and Morgan Aguilar, who will be sharing their work concurrently. So Lafayette.
All right, thanks DJ. Hello everyone. Before I get started here, just want to similarly acknowledge my being on the land of the Sioux, the Miami, the Potawatomi, and the Kickapoo. I've been spending a lot of time as I think of speculation sort of focusing on land and history and future. Let me share my screen. All right, I was originally going to share a different picture, but seeing everyone else's beautiful work. Awesome. Yeah, sorry. Hello. As DJ said, my name is Lafayette Cruz. I am, go by the pronouns he, him. I am a urban planner and a futurist. What that means is I basically sort of try to live out the argument that urban planning in and of itself is speculative fiction. The worlds that we are trying to make are stories, they're fictions. We are trying to create characters and paths of existing in stories, and I've really appreciated just everyone's pieces. I feel like sitting in one of the sort of world building sessions that I tend to facilitate. Yeah, so DJ asked me to talk about the work that I do, and that sort of falls under three sort of major projects at the moment. One, working with the city of Racine to imagine, city of Racine, Wisconsin, my hometown, to imagine sort of the future of housing and rental housing, and trying to go past the sort of immediate, trying to, one, address immediate needs, but then embody what do we aspire living in our city to look like. What does a future where we have worked as a city to facilitate the de-escalation of the antagonism between renters and landlords, where it's not seen as sort of a oppositional position, but one where when there is conflict, tenants and landlords know how to talk to each other. Ownership of property isn't just between individuals or outside investors, but between the community and in families and individuals, and just really diversifying that. But like, what does that embody? What does that look like? And then my other projects are much more related to my work with this organization called the Guild of Future Architects. We are a one-year-old organization, just a collection of artists and technologists and planners. We have a number of doctors, a couple of educators, and really trying to practice this thing called future architecture, where we are engaging in projects of multidisciplinary projects to create just a kinder, more just, more beautiful world. I think this image up here is sort of related to a bunch of projects that I have been working on and trying to imagine that. Unfortunately, you get to see my excitement in collaging. After 2 years, it's been 2 years since I took design skills, and I finally feel comfortable collaging. But I've been exploring this concept of the edible city through a number of different things. So this concept of, especially in the American context, where we live in a land that is so fertile, how is it that we've never figured out our food value chain? How is it that in the midst of a pandemic, we have everyone learning how to make sourdough bread, but there are people who are hungry? And while there are people who are hungry, farmers are throwing out their produce. And so my exploration sort of has looked through a number of different things. So one, working with the Guild of Future Architects, we've been working with the Rockefeller Foundation and their Food Vision Prize grantees. So working with people from all over the world who are trying to reimagine their food systems in the community, and not just sort of, they've already done sort of the speculative work, and now working with them to like, what is a compelling story? How do you create a pedagogy of co-creating a narrative so that not only are you presenting the story, but you are iterating over it with your community. You're creating an embodied vision of what food in your food system looks like. This also looks like sort of as a guild, a part of a team who's been exploring sort of what is the future of response to crisis and advocacy. And so I've been focusing on what are the advocacy tools, or what are the advocacy platforms that people are experimenting with around food? Again, going back to this, we're in the middle of a pandemic and people are hungry despite farmers throwing away their food. And then at a more local level, I've been working with a group of people who are trying to start a food co-op. Being based in Wisconsin, we're a highly agricultural state. We have lots of small farmers, and yet the anchor city that I live in is experiencing food apartheid. Despite there being farmers who want to be able to sell their food here, despite there being small batch growers. And so trying to, one, not only help sort of this group of this 12,000 people who are members of the co-op sort of imagine something beyond just a grocery store, but really at the government and regional level, how do we facilitate the cultivation of a different sort of food ecosystem? How can we make sure that in a state that produces so much food that no one goes hungry, and that farmers and farm labor are actually paid and protected and kept safe? Yeah, I can't see the chat, so I don't know if I have how much more time I have. Cool, I'll pass it on to Morgan.
Thanks, Loth. It's been really great to be in community with all of y'all today. I'm gonna share my screen. And hopefully, or is everyone able to see a photo? Just want to make sure that, okay, great. So I'm going to talk about quickly, so I guess as an intro, my name is Morgan Aguilar, she, her pronouns. I graduated in 2019 from DUS and have, while I work in kind of urban or community and nonprofit development, specifically development of schools in New York City, I also have had the opportunity to continue working with this amazing group called Growing Change in rural North Carolina, as well as several colleagues that I went to school with as we try and figure out what our way forward is through this work and continuing to kind of support groups like Growing Change. And so the photo that you see is from one of our visioning sessions when we went down to North Carolina summer of 2018. And so the group you see here, the large majority of the people in the forefront of the photo in the chairs is other DUSP and MIT architecture students, past and present students. And then the younger folks on the other side are youth leaders who actually are some of the principal leaders of Growing Change. And what Growing Change's principal mission is, it's a group of these youth with pretty much only one other adult, Norrin Sanford, who is like the figurehead and founder of this organization. And they are reimagining how a decommissioned prison site is transformed from a space of segregation and subjugation into a youth-led community agricultural site and community center. And so we have been lucky enough to partner with them in trying to, in some ways, provide architectural and urban planning services, something that is often inaccessible to community groups. And while it's been really exciting to provide kind of design work and kind of translate some of their visions and goals into design proposals, it's also been really rewarding to continue to build, to like understand the network of people that and groups that are connected to this organization that help it grow and transform and in some ways like stay alive in the ways that we know that nonprofits and community-based groups sometimes struggle to do when it comes to like funding and securing consistent resources. And this experience is really for us as students and now moving out of school into becoming practitioners has really led us to think a lot about how we want to practice as design and planning professionals. And so that led us to think about how can we continue doing this work. And one way that we've done that is kind of started to form a design collective that we call Group Project. And we are always, and maybe this is how it should be, always in the development stages of our personal and professional theories of practice. And we're always constantly looking at a mission statement that we've written at one point and deciding if that actually rings true to what we're doing and what we want to be doing. But I will read one quick working mission statement that we had that I think has started to ground us in the work that we're interested in doing. Group Project acknowledges that we are not capable of addressing all of the design potential this site offers. Therefore, we feel it is our responsibility to bring in more voices, schools of thought, and perspectives to expand the discourse of this project. Our goal is to encourage a design practice that welcomes multidisciplinary collaboration as paramount to good design and seeks to develop a practice that celebrates a community of thought instead of running from it. And so for us, while Group Project is a collective that is actively trying to support, again, in this like sort of more traditional architect, urban planner capacity, we're also really interested in trying to understand how can we start to push the realities of how we've been taught to practice as professional designers and planners and urbanists, how we're supposed to practice, quote unquote, and how we engage with clients and end users, especially when our principal interest is to work with community-based and mission-driven projects. And so we've been thinking about how does this go beyond growing change. And so one way we've thought about that is we've submitted to architectural design competitions, one of them being HPD in New York, the Housing Preservation Department had a small lots competition, and it was about presenting a new form of housing on these very narrow lots in what would be kind of traditional brownstone streets. And for us, our proposal was really rooted in what are the possibilities, what would the new possibilities for housing be if we actually drilled down to the zoning code and redefine the ways that it defines family. If we expanded the definition of what is like quote unquote traditionally considered a family, could we actually open residential housing construction up to new possibilities, such as in embracing the ways that queer communities are rooted in the notion of chosen families and communal living. And so those are just the small ways that we've been trying to think past how we actually employ our design thinking skills and in a way that allows everyone we work with to express their ability and capacity to also be design thinkers and expressionists. So that's us.
Thank you, Lafayette and Morgan, so much for sharing your work and sharing why it matters to be speculative, why it matters in practice for us to be able to bring tools that help people to vision a different space that goes beyond what they already understand. At this moment, I want to recognize that we are approaching our original kind of time frame and want to offer people the opportunity to, if they have to go for any reason, to go, but we will continue until the end of the hour. And also, as we're moving forward, we're going to step into our guided journaling exercise. So if you can very quickly grab a pen, grab a paper, sticky note, because we have a couple things we want you to be able to reflect on in the next couple of minutes. Cool. So at this point, there are 3 questions we want folks to really take into mind after the full breadth of experience we just had. Those 3 questions for us to you are, from all the stories you've been shared and the work you've been shared, what resonated most with your own lived experience? The other thing we want you to consider is, if someone asks you to speculate about a future of social justice, what are you most hopeful about? And where are the barriers? And the last thing we want you to take these next 4 minutes to do is to think about what are some of the steps you would need to take in that direction. Particularly, what immediate actions can you take now? So take the next 4 minutes to sit with these questions, take notes, and then we'll reconvene with a group dialogue, and we welcome your participation because this is supposed to be an intimate moment where we decolonize our notions of practice. So take the next 4 minutes, and we'll send a notice when it's time.
Dan dinero para apoyos. Y si pegan, nos van a
Okay, welcome back, everyone. So during this portion of our session, we want to invite folks into a group dialogue. We know normally there's like, Q&A and but first we want to figure out and get more of folks initial reactions and some of the answers to their questions if you're willing to share. So feel free to just turn your video on or turn your mic on, and also feel free to share in the chat.
I guess I can jump in if that's all right. So I was reflecting on all of the pieces shared, and thank you everyone for sharing those. And looking at the question of what resonates most with me and my lived experience. And I think on one hand, the stories don't resonate with me and my lived experience because they're your stories. And on the other hand, there are aspects and pieces of all of them that resonate. So I just wanted to say thank you to all of you. So for example, to Emmett for displaying this constellation of individuals moving through a shared space as a dance. To Danny and Betsa for showcasing small acts of community building and how impactful that is. For Kevin, the most vivid imagery of betel nut, which I'm quite familiar with, and also for a loss of family. To Nick for re-envisioning ownership and recognizing past occupants. For Gerard to look inward and ask questions about positionality, which is extremely important. And to Vanessa for conveying the feeling of fearing a hollow recovery. I think that was something that really resonated with me. And when I think about the future, to speculate on the future, that fear is very real. I think it's also showing, and that's something that's hopeful for me, is that there does seem to be a desire to sort of bring our humanity back into business, into how we interact with each other, into planning. And by that, I mean, people seem to want to know the humans behind the system in a way. And making those connections, making that network, supporting local businesses, getting to know your neighbor. I love that direction, and I hope as a society we can keep moving that forward. I see it happening, so I think that's my point of hope. So those are my thoughts.
Thank you.
I'm gonna speak. Thank you everyone for this amazing piece of art. Both my parents and my sister, they are artists, so I am normal. I should be used to be dealing with all different sensations, but you never get used to artistic expressions, right? It's just something that can take different shapes that it is impossible for you to get used to it. And when you combine it with social justice and urban planning, that it is just such a beautiful tool for social transformation. So thank you very much for such a special moment. I was feeling like, do you know when you put your feet in the garage with no shoes, so relaxed? I was feeling like that. So it's such a wonderful experience that just listening to your words or the music, even you reading your pieces, you were able to make me feel that way. So that's amazing. Something that resonates to my personal experience, because I'm coming from a particular socioeconomic a background that might be really different, let's say it, is the community land trust that Nick was speaking about. I imagine, well, personally, because I started to study urban planning because of the right of housing, because I see housing as a basic human right and everything that surrounds housing as something that should be accompanying, but housing is the center for me. So in that fight for the right of housing and for people living, people not just having a shelter, but also having a healthy shelter, I imagine a future where through this type of process of empowerment, people can not only have a place to live that is affordable, but also an environment that accompanies self-empowerment and economic democracy and liberation, right? So I guess one of the barriers that I see in community land trust is how can you get funding without being without falling into dependence from that funding? How communities can build resources, economic resources that allow them to generate this type of tools of empowerment and liberation without being dependent of the dynamics of the market and the actors or stakeholders that normally are in power, because then the process of liberation is not gonna be possible. I stop there.
Thank you. Anyone else want to share?
I have one quick reflection. Well, I should say I similarly was so moved by every piece of speculation today. I feel like it all of them so deeply resonated with me, but it actually reminded me of a moment in the recent past. That first night, shortly after George Floyd was murdered, where cities were on fire, it felt like there was a space somewhere between fear and a defensive reaction where it felt like anything in the world was possible. And that moment was a terrifying one, but it was maybe the most freeing moment of this whole experience. And what makes me hopeful is that was a shared experience that we were all here for. And some of the things that came in the weeks afterwards were things that I never imagined were conversations that could happen, were actions that could be taken, were things that I would ever see. So I think, that hopefulness has waned a little bit in the now that we're in almost August, and things have not materialized in the ways that seemed possible then, but at the same time, I was there to witness it, as was everyone else who's still alive today. So I think that there's something really powerful in that, and that is what makes me hopeful about a future of social justice. So.
Thank you, Maya. At this moment, again, we want to be mindful of folks' time, but what we're going to do right now is have some amazing closing remarks from our top leadership at CoLab, Ms. Dana Cunningham, who will talk a little bit about, why speculative practice matters to academia and really to DUSP, especially in this moment.
Thank you, DJ, for giving me my talking points. I very much need that. So first, I just want to reiterate what everybody has said about how beautiful and haunting and powerful all of this work has been. And, when the CoLab research group started thinking through what could they do in this moment, and the idea of a speculative exercise and a speculative exploration came up, it was just so incredibly thrilling. Because at the end of the day, all we have is our imagination and our will to change. That's all we have. And in the technical disciplines, such as planning and all of the subspecialties of planning, we actually rarely get a chance to explore the fullest edges of our imagination. You know, sure, there's creativity in all kinds of different planning exercises, but really to ask ourselves the question, what if we could create a whole new world? What if we could see today as a moment in the far distant past? Where would we find ourselves? And so that is and how would we explore that idea in multiple formats, using multiple different ways of knowing that don't discard the technical, but combine the technical with all of these other imaginative forms. So tremendous gratitude to the research team, to Tony, to DJ, to Allison, not sure who else was involved, but to all the people who were involved, Emmett, in structuring this exercise, because it was brave and different and quirky, which is hopefully how CoLab likes to be in the world. I think has really started something new for CoLab and for the DUSP community and for the community beyond DUSP, which is, I just want to say one thing. There are a whole lot of faces on this call that I actually don't recognize. And I don't really know how you got to this event, but I'm just so excited to see you. And I really, really hope it's not the last time that we see you in CoLab activities. So and so on that note, just how much imagination can help build and expand community. So thank you to the creators and the organizers. Thank you to the artists, and thank you to all of the participants who came. We really, it's the beginning of something really interesting.
Thank you so much for those closing remarks. So as we go, I just want to remind folks that CoLab is a space that is actively trying to use these set of tools to create a more just practice and a just academic environment. And feel free to connect with us. We are dropping a link in the chat. So sign up on the Google form if you're interested, one, in following up in the completion of the works that were shared. And also, if you're interested in collecting some of the speculative media tool supports that we found useful amongst ourselves to help you feel a little bit more imaginative in this moment where it feels paralyzing to even think about tomorrow. So with that said, I also want to share my email address. It is dasjonj@mit.edu, and that'll be dropped in the chat also. I'll be the bridge for student engagement on behalf of CoLab. So feel free to reach out if there's any way that I can help you directly. And on that note, we thank you so much, and take breaks. People, drink a lot of water and get rest.
It was beautiful. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
So much gratitude for everybody. Stay safe.
Gracias.
Ciao.
Ciao.
Take care, everybody.
Everybody.
Bye.